Welcome to the Nightingales campfire. Tonight we'll be telling spooky stories. Anyone have one?
Oh, I do. This is the story of Kelsey and the Kelpie. There was a young girl named Kelsey who was absolutely enamored with horses. All of her friends had them, but she was the only one still stuck leasing a horse. She desperately wanted one of her own to really bond with. Kelsey was also a huge bookworm and spent any time not with horses in the local library reading about them. She wanted to know everything there was to know. On her 16th birthday, her father gifted her a very old book bound in leather, which included many stories about wild horses in the area. Kelsey began to dream of finding her own horse. There were stories of herds having lived not far from her home near a beautiful lake. She begged her father to take her to the lake so that she could look around. Finally, he agreed to take her and booked a spot near the lake for the following weekend. Once they were complete with setting up the campsite, Kelsey set out on her search, staying out way past the agreed upon time with her father. As night began to fall, an eerie fog settled around the lake. Kelsey was cold and nervous, but determined to keep looking. She saw a shadow in the distance and wondered if that could be the horse she was looking for. As she approached, she found that it was a horse, as she suspected, very large in stature and seemingly unafraid of the girl before it. The horse was a beautiful white color, moonlight glistening off its coat. The horse laid down with its eyes on Kelsey, seemingly waiting for her to get on, and Kelsey wasn't going to let an opportunity like this pass her by. This was going to be her horse. She carefully climbed onto the horse's back. They began a slow walk through the forest and quickly picked up to a slow gallop so Kelsey could really get the experience. Once they reached back around to the lake, the horse slowly started to wade into the water. Kelsey had always dreamed of swimming with a horse and couldn't believe she was getting this opportunity. The horse continued walking until it couldn't touch the bottom anymore and began swimming. Kelsey was frightened and tried to convey to the horse that they needed to return to land. The horse refused to turn around and kept swimming until they were near the middle of the lake. Kelsey was now completely panicking and grasping onto the mane of this horse for dear life. She wasn't a very strong swimmer and was very tired from the exploring earlier in the day. The horse stopped paddling and began to sink, with no signs of panic in its eyes. As Kelsey was pulled underwater, she tried to swim away but found that her hand was too entangled in the mane of the horse and she couldn't escape. She was pulled down into the depths and was never found.
Me next. I have a cool story. This is about the Screaming Stallion. Once every full moon, Death waltzes around Jorvik, hoping to find a companion to accompany him. Everyone is scared of Death, though, so finding a companion is rather difficult. However, one fateful moon, he did meet such a creature that wasn't scared. A lonesome blithe stallion, his heart full of sadness for being left to die. Death knew it was his time to go, so why not give this poor horse a chance to shine? The stallion was frightened at first, but quickly warmed up to Death as the moons continued to fade and reappear brighter. As Death taught the stallion the ways of being, Death, the stallion's coat started to shrivel away. Even Death himself was growing distant with the stallion. Why was he starting to seemingly rot away? The stallion began wandering off from Death to a local graveyard and wouldn't leave for many days. The stallion began being spotted by the locals in the area and was later called Woodier for his constant appearance in the misty morning surrounding rotting trees and graves. The people had begun to fear Woodier, for whenever he appeared, their home valley turned foggy and full moons had become unable to travel in. As such, locals began to go missing. Death himself was worried for the poor stallion. He had wanted a companion, not a killing monster that wreaked unsuspecting havoc on a poor village. Sure, Death knew what being abandoned was like, but Woodier had taken it too far one night. Woodier's anger was controlling him now. Nothing could stop the rampages of death he brought whenever he appeared. Misty mornings meant you wouldn't survive if you went out. In turn, Death felt pity and bound Woodier to the graveyard he had buried the original stallion's body in. Some say they can still hear the screams of a stallion, calling for anyone to release him from his prison.
And the final story of the night, The Tales of the Witch Horse.
Some monsters hunt the night, lingering in the shadows beneath your bed, haunting the forests where leafless trees form skeletal hands, grasping desperately for a blackened sky. Creatures that will creep and crawl, skitter and shriek, moan and wail. This creature is not like each of those. No fangs protrude from its lip, no snarl pulls at its maw, no glowing red eyes, nor vicious claws. It is a beautiful horse, a paint of browns and blacks and whites, stunning patterns that trick the eye and serve to delight. It is Laverna, the witch horse. Laverna's story starts out a pleasant one. Living well with her trusted rider, she never wanted for anything. She was always comfortable, treated well, and never alone. In the days of Galloper Thompson, or Gunner, as his name truly was, Laverna was the only horse who could get close to Morrigan without being bit or kicked or chased away. Laverna often kept Morrigan company, grazing together in the open fields, and only ever leaving whenever Gunner got too close. Her rider was an admirer of Gunner's, a watcher from afar who could appreciate the bond he shared with his beloved steed. Her name was Amelie Smithens, and she longed to reach the tortured soul of the lonely Gunner. Alas, it was not to be. Amelie and Laverna were out for a ride on the day that Gunner's head was severed from his body. It is said that Laverna felt the death of Morrigan, even so far away, and grieved without ever seeing her cherished friend die. Upon their return to Jarlaheim, Amelie was furious, demanding to know what had happened. Unwilling to believe the allegations against Gunner, she lunged for John Jarl, demanding he pay for his sins. Amelie was imprisoned, and Laverna was set free to fend for herself in the wilds of Jorvik, alone. Unwilling to abandon her rider, Laverna sought aid from the witches of the north. They promised to set Amelie free, at the cost of Laverna's own soul. Laverna readily paid the price. Amelie was set free. Her corpse was buried in the sacred grounds of Doyley's Abbey. Her freedom eternal. Laverna, distraught at this turn of events, demanded the witches take it back, that they undo their deal. "You made your choice. Now pay the price," the witches hissed. Laverna screamed and fought, kicking and trying to get the free as the witch spell worked through her. She felt something within her shift, like a lock finally springing open. The power the witches had used to attempt to steal Laverna's soul only powered the strange horse further. Laverna's body began to change, powerful horns curving from her head, skin peeling away to reveal the skull beneath. Pelt rendered the purples and pinks of the galaxies above, and on her flank, the mark of the witches. The twisted people who had tried to steal Laverna's soul found their own souls reaped as her power ripped through them, destroying them where they stood. Laverna ran from the scene, disgusted and afraid of what she'd become. Reaching Doyley's Abbey, she stood by the grave of her beloved lost rider. It is there she remained for several decades, just standing there, waiting to die so she might at last rejoin Amelie in the afterlife. But Laverna's curse was that of eternity. She would not perish, she would not fall, she would remain, a constant reminder of the death she'd caused. It is rumored that Galloper Thompson and Morrigan took pity on her and called her to join them in the keep, where she could watch over the souls of all who crossed over, never able to join them, but at least able to ease their passage.